evaluation that comes with the project. I'm going to present only a very few preliminary results because, as you have seen when you looked at the time schedule, we are in a quite early phase of the project. We did a policy analysis mainly, and I also, as the project coordinator, visited most of the countries and had discussions with policymakers and also looked at infrastructures. So we have a set of more or less qualitative data right now, and I'm going to present some of the results in a comparison of 4 countries to you in a minute. So what do we mean with policies? Or well, do we look for in our policy analysis? We look what kind of governmental sectors are involved in the development of infrastructure. It's not only the sport, it's not only urban planning, there are different sectors involved. And of course it's interesting what is the role of the health sector, public health. Later on I will tell you that we see a kind of structural dilemma there for the health sector, because they have no direct say, for example, if it comes to sport facilities, if they would like to improve health-enhancing physical activity. So we look at different sectors, we looked at different levels of governmental actors, so mainly national, regional and local. And of course what policies are there in the field. And with regard to the processes of development, we looked at planning approaches, we looked at types of infrastructures, and one issue of the whole project is also to address the issue of social inequality within the countries and also between the countries involved. So, as I said, some selected findings from the first phase of the project. What kind of policies, what kind of policy structures do we have? I will compare one country from the north, it's Finland, with one country from more central part of Europe, it's Germany, with the one country from the southwest, it's Portugal, and with one country from the central east, it's Lithuania. And it's also one of the new member states. So it's out of these 13 countries involved, 4 typical examples maybe. So Finland has a strong impact on sport and physical activity, also with regard to infrastructure development, already via the constitution, where mainly the sport sector has the task to develop also infrastructure, so they do have a kind of sport development plan at national level. They do have also sport facility development plan at national level and also at local level. So they are quite well organized, and in many cases also the health sector is involved in this interplay of policy development. And also the transport sector, of course, has its own policies promoting walking and biking, as we learned very much about in the previous presentation. In Germany, the situation is slightly different. On the one hand, we do have the sports sector. It's not in the constitution in Germany compared to Finland. We do have the sports sector, but the sports sector does not really work on this issue at the national level, because sport as an issue relates to the states, it's an issue of culture, so it's not actually at the national level. The transport is at the national level, so we do have a national policy in transport, and one policy, concrete policy, is the National Action Plan on Cycling. In Germany, very much with regard to sport development is done at the local level. You have local sport development plans also dealing with infrastructures. And health, actually health is not playing a major role so far if it comes to infrastructures in Germany. But they are now approaching this issue, but as I already mentioned, there is this structural dilemma because the competences, the political competencies are related to other sectors. In Portugal, the situation is that, on the one hand, sport plays a major role in developing leisure time infrastructures, but it's mainly on the local level, as you can see at the bold arrow here. Not so much support from the national and the state level for the development here. And an interesting example that I saw in Portugal for developing of infrastructures within socially disadvantaged neighborhood was facilitated by funding by the European Union via the regional development plans. So it came via social and urban planning sectors, and they supported particularly the developing of infrastructures for physical activity in socially deprived areas. I think a very good example of added value of European policy, because in other countries that's an important issue to approach social inequality. And I will give you then another example in a minute where it's just the opposite to this situation. Transport and health do not play a major role from our information that we do have so far in developing infrastructures. And finally, Lithuania, they developed a sport development plan, but it has not been passed the government, so there was no financing for it, so actually they do not have policy at this level. Health, they do have a draft of a strategy, but it's not already implemented. And they actually do not have really policies at the transport sector. So if you compare this to the situation in the other countries, you see there is a need for more development here. And the interesting thing is, but what I saw is that the private sector plays a major role then here. It's of course, it's the countries in transition, or whatever you want to name it, and the whole idea to get the marketing. But I saw in Vilnius, for example, the capital, I saw very nice facilities. They are all sponsored by private international companies. Of course, the problem is if your kid is going to take soccer lessons there, it's 25 euro per month. It's much more than you would pay in a sport club in Germany. So what really happens here, from my perspective, is that this is an approach that would even widen social inequality in sport and physical activity if the private sector comes in such a society. So that's something one has to really concern about. Second issue, planning. What kind of approaches do they apply for planning? It has been mentioned today it's important to involve the population, citizens' participation in planning is important. So is that the reality in Europe, in European countries? Is it a systematic planning approach? Or where is all the decisions are based upon? So we look for 4 different approaches. Do they have inventories as a first step? Do they know what kind of sport facilities they have? Other infrastructures, of course. Then there is a traditional approach to say, okay, we need so many sport facilities of this and this type per capita. Is this a practice in the different countries? Then, of course, there could be more sophisticated approaches, need assessments by surveys. Do they apply population survey? Do they survey clubs, sport clubs, what their needs are, what people are actually doing at the population level, and how they evaluate the existing infrastructures and so on and so on. So that would be a third approach. And as I already mentioned, a very important one from our perspective is in how far do they use participatory planning approaches. And of course you could discuss what does that mean, participatory. Is it enough just to start with a brainstorm and ask the different stakeholders what their idea and then go further with experts that are really saying how and where, and then that the politicians make the management